In January 1716, Tsar Peter traveled in the Baltic region to discuss peace negotiations and how to protect the sea trade route from the Swedes. He visited Riga, Königsberg, and Danzig. There his niece married the quarrelsome Duke of Mecklenburg-Schwerin, with whom Peter wanted an alliance. He obtained the assistance of Frederick William I of Prussia, who sieged the strong Swedish fortress Wismar. In Altena, he met with Danish diplomats, supporting Prussia. He sailed to Copenhagen heading an allied fleet. In Wittenberg, he visited the monastery where Luther lived. In May, he went on to Bad Pyrmont, and, because of his physical problems, he stayed at this spa. There he met with the genius Leibniz. Blumentrost and Ereskine accompanied him. In early December, Peter arrived in Amsterdam and visited Nicholas Whitson. He obtained many paintings, including works by Maria Sibylla Marian for his Kunstkamera and Rembrandt's David and Jonathan for Peterhof Palace. He paid a visit to a friend's mansion near Nygdevecht, a silk manufacture, and a paper mill. At 5 in the morning, he was received by Herman Boerhaave, who showed Peter the botanical garden. In April 1717, he continued his travels to the Austrian Netherlands, Dunkirk, and Calais. In Paris, he obtained many books, requested to become a member of the Académie des Sciences, and visited the Parliament, the Sorbonne, and Madame Maintenon. Via the Palace of St. Cloud, the Grand Trianon at Versailles, and Fontainebleau, he traveled on to Maastricht, at that time one of the most important fortresses in Europe. He returned to Amsterdam to attend a treaty with France and Prussia on August 15. He achieved diplomatic success, and his international prestige was consolidated. Again, he visited the Hortus Botanicus and left the city in early September 1717, heading for Berlin. In October, he was back in St. Petersburg. In 1719, New Holland Island was created. The Tsar's navy was powerful enough that the Russians could penetrate Sweden. Still, Charles XII refused to yield, and not until his death in battle in 1718 did peace become feasible. After the Battle of Grengam, Sweden made peace with all powers except Russia by 1720. In 1721, the Treaty of Nystad ended the Great Northern War. Russia acquired Ingria, Estonia, Livonia, and a substantial portion of Karelia. In turn, Russia surrendered most of Finland. In 1717, Alexander Bekovich-Cherkessky led the first Russian military expedition into Central Asia against the Khanate of Khiva. The expedition ended in complete disaster when the entire expeditionary force was slaughtered. By the end of 1717, the preparatory phase of administrative reform in Russia was completed. After 1718, Peter established collegiums in place of the old central agencies of government, including foreign affairs, war, navy, expense, income, justice, and inspection. Later, others were added to regulate mining and industry. Each college consisted of a president, a vice president, a number of counselors and assessors, and a procurator. Some foreigners were included in various colleges but not as president. Pavel Jaguzinski was entrusted with the observation of the soonest possible establishment of colleges by their presidents. Peter did not have enough loyal, talented, or educated persons to put in full charge of the various departments. Peter preferred to rely on groups of individuals who would keep checks on one another. Decisions depended on the majority vote. In 1718, Peter investigated why the formerly Swedish province of Livonia was so orderly. He discovered that the Swedes spent as much administering Livonia as he spent on the entire Russian bureaucracy. He was forced to dismantle the province's government. In June 1721, he had Gagarin, the governor of Siberia, executed. Peter's last years were marked by further reform in Russia. On November 2, 1721, soon after peace was made with Sweden, he was officially proclaimed Emperor of all Russia. The coronation of the Russian monarch took place in Uspensky Cathedral, Moscow. Some proposed that he take the title Emperor of the East, but he refused. Gavrila Golovkin, the state chancellor, was the first to add the Great, father of his country, Emperor of all the Russias, to Peter's traditional title of Tsar in 1721. Peter's imperial title was recognized by Augustus II of Poland, Frederick William I of Prussia, and Frederick I of Sweden, but not by the other European monarchs. In the minds of many, the word emperor connoted superiority or preeminence over kings. Several rulers feared that Peter would claim authority over them, just as the Holy Roman Emperor had claimed suzerainty over all Christian nations. By the grace of God, the most excellent and great sovereign Emperor Pyotr Alexeyevich, the ruler of all the Russias, of Moscow, of Kiev, of Vladimir, of Novgorod, Tsar of Kazan, Tsar of Astrakhan, and Tsar of Siberia, sovereign of Pskov, Great Prince of Smolensk, of Tver, of Yugorsk, of Perm, of Vyatka, of Bulgaria and others, sovereign and great prince of the Novgorod lower lands, of Chernigov, of Ryazan, of Rostov, of Yaroslavl, of Belozersk, of Eudora, of Kandya, and the sovereign of all the northern lands, and the sovereign of the Iverian lands, of the Kartlian and Georgian kings, of the Kabardan lands, of the Circassian and mountain princes, and many other states and lands western and eastern here and there, and the successor and sovereign and ruler. In 1722, Peter issued a decree on the succession to the throne, in which he abolished the ancient custom of transferring the throne to direct descendants in the male line. The decree was so unusual for Russian society that it was necessary to explain it. Peter created a new order of precedence for landowners known as the Table of Ranks. To deprive the boyars of their high positions, Peter directed that precedence should be determined by merit and service to the emperor. The Table of Ranks continued to remain in effect until the Russian monarchy was overthrown in 1917. In 1722, John Bell accompanied Peter the Great on a military expedition to the city of Derbent near the Caspian Sea. The once powerful Persian Safavid Empire to the south was in deep decline. Taking advantage of the situation, Peter launched the Russo-Persian War of 1722 to 1723, otherwise known as the Persian Expedition of Peter the Great, which drastically increased Russian influence for the first time in the Caucasus and Caspian Sea region and prevented the Ottoman Empire from making territorial gains in the region. After considerable success and the capture of many provinces and cities in the Caucasus and northern mainland Persia, the Safavids were forced to hand over territory to Russia, comprising Derbent, Shirvan, Jilin, Mazandaran, Baku, and Astrabad. Within 12 years, all the territories were ceded back to Persia, now led by the charismatic military genius Nader Shah, as part of the Treaty of Resht, the Treaty of Ganja, and as a result of a Russo-Persian alliance against the Ottoman Empire, which was the common enemy of both. Peter changed the system of direct taxation. He abolished the land and household tax and replaced them with a poll tax. The taxes on land and on households were payable only by individuals who owned property or maintained families. The new head taxes were payable by serfs and paupers. Peter began construction of the Monplaisir Palace. In 1725, the construction of Peterhof was completed. Peterhof was a grand residence, becoming known as the Russian Versailles.